Hey, grade nines, we're going to take a look at arrow diagrams. So when we look at arrow diagrams, the key thing about arrow diagrams is inverse operations. If we recall inverse operations, the inverse of subtract is add, multiply, divide, and of course vice versa. X squared is square root. So those are inverse operations we're working with in grade 9. We take a look at our first example. Arrow diagrams, 3x equals 15. So that's all the stuff I'm going to use, but when I look at, and this comes straight from your notes, here's my setup. I always start with a variable. So what variable do we have? We have x. So I put x in my square. And then I draw an arrow to it. What do I do to that x? I multiply by 3. So when I go 3 times x, I get 3x. That is the left side of my equation. Right below it, my right side, I put 15. So when we drop down to the level below, that's kind of like equals. So this is now my right side of the equation. Then I look at my multiplied by 3. Well, what is the inverse operation of multiplied by 3? That is correct. Divide by 3. 15 divided by 3 has a quotient of 5. So therefore, x equals 5. All right. Let's check out another example. 3x plus 8 equals negative 13. Same thing. I always start with a variable. I look at, in this case, it's the left side of the equation. If it was on the right side, it wouldn't matter, negative 13 on the left, we would still start with our variable. My variable's an x. Okay, so I put an x down. Good. X goes in my first box. Start my equation. What do I do to the x? Once again, just by luck, I'm multiplying by 3 to get 3x. And that's the arrow pointing this direction. Then what do I do on the left-hand side after I multiply by 3x? I add 8. So let's add 8. And we get 3x plus 8, the whole left side of the equation. Now right below it is my right side. My right side is negative 13. My arrow goes to the left now. What is the inverse of adding 8? Subtracting 8. So I subtract 8 from negative 13. Key point, negative 13. Negative 8 minus negative 13. Sorry, my bad. Negative 13 minus 8, that equals negative 21. So then we go, what's our next step? Well, multiply by 3. What's the inverse of multiply by 3? Divide by 3. Negative 21 divided by a positive 3 is negative 7. X equals negative 7. Look at the inverse operation. Multiply to divide, then add to subtract. And of course, there we have x equals negative 7. Okay, let's try our last example here. Our next one, 2 equals x over 2 minus 3. Don't worry about the way this equation is set up. Everything's the same. Always start with a variable. My x. What's my first step to do to x? Well, I divide by 2. Divide by 2 to get x over 2. So now we have x over 2. Then what do we do to x over 2? We subtract 3. Subtract 3 to get x over 2 minus 3. We go to my left side. I have the number 2. So I put the 2 right below. Now the arrows go in the opposite direction. What is the inverse of subtract 3? Of course, it's add 3. 3 plus 2, that equals 5. What is the inverse of divided by 2? It is multiplied by 2. 5 times 2 is 10. X equals 10. I hope that helped everybody. Let me know if you need any assistance. Always email or private chat is excellent. Hope everyone's doing well and stay safe.